Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Closer to God in 15 minutes or less direct Bible study, Galatians. I'm going to start a commentary on Paul's epistle to the Galatians and begin with background information. First, what is background information? Basically, background information is the who, what, when, where, and why of biblical studies here. And so we're going to start with the question of who, and that relates to authorship. Who wrote the epistle to the Galatians here? There can be little doubt that the Apostle Paul wrote this great epistle of the New Testament. In fact, Galatians is practically a rough draft to his magnum opus, the Epistle to the Romans. Let me give you some examples here. In Galatians, we have classic Pauline terms like justification by faith alone, salvation by grace alone, faith, righteousness, law, flesh, works. All of these are classic Pauline words, and they're used in the classic Pauline sense. So all of that is pointing to Paul as the author. Also, all of our earliest manuscripts have Paul as the author. Additionally, all of the early church fathers, that is the successors to the apostles, named Paul as the author of Galatians. And our earliest canonical list, that is the authoritative books of the New Testament, they all classify Galatians under the category of Paul. So in conclusion, Paul is the one who wrote the epistle to the Galatians here. Now, what? And I've been using the word epistle off and on. Basically, an epistle is a letter, and Paul kept in contact with his churches by way of letters and correspondence here. There are 13 Pauline epistles in the New Testament, and Galatians is one of them. And we should know that in Galatians, Paul is a free man. He's not in prison, as it was in our commentary on Philippians. So this is not a prison epistle. When? We're talking about the date and time of writing. Now, this is quite important here because the time that Paul wrote the Galatians can't be separated from where he wrote Galatians here. And so we really have to address the where first before we can get to the when. Where exactly is Galatia here? Now, at the top of our manuscripts, we have the phrase pros Galatas, which means to the Galatians. The problem is that in the first century world, there were two distinct designations for the word Galatians. One designation was an ethnic designation referring to the ancient kingdom of the Gauls, and the second was a regional or geographic designation pointing to South Central Asia Minor or Turkey. And that has yielded two distinct theories about the destination or where this letter was going to. There's the Northern Galatian theory and the Southern Galatian theory. Let me start with the Northern Galatian theory. In this particular theory, the word Galatia refers to the ancient kingdom of the Gauls or the Celts, which is quite interesting. This is where we get Gaelic from, the language of Gaelic in Ireland and northern Scotland here, because the ethnic kingdom of the Gauls was in north central Asia Minor, north central Turkey, and the Romans pushed them all the way up across the English Channel into the British Isles here. So we have the Gauls, the Celts, and so Galatia refers to the ancient kingdom of the Gauls. Paul passed through this region on his second missionary journey in Acts chapter 16 and on his third missionary journey in Acts chapter 18. So that would mean that if you take the Northern Galatian theory that Paul wrote Galatians around 51 to 52 AD, or if after his third missionary journey, it would be 55 to 56 AD here. There's some problems with this. The book of Acts says that Paul planted many churches in Galatia, but he didn't plant any churches in northern Galatia. And so all it says is that in Acts 18, he strengthened disciples in north central Asia Minor or Turkey here. And also Acts has Paul entering into synagogues to preach the gospel in Galatia here, but there were no synagogues in North Galatia here. So we've got some problems with the North Galatian theory here as well. If you choose the North Galatian theory, that would mean that Paul wrote Galatians after the famed Jerusalem Council of Acts chapter 15. Now, in this particular council, the church in Jerusalem rejected the pressure of hyper-conservative Jewish, quote, Christians to try to make Gentiles convert to Judaism first before they became Christians here. Basically, Judaism was going to be the prime paradigm for faith, and Christianity has to fit somewhere under that here. And the Jerusalem Council rejected that pressure here. So when fighting the Judaizers in Galatians, and Paul does that, we're going to see that he, vehemently rejects the program of the Judaizers in Galatians. He never mentions the Jerusalem Council. And why not? If he's writing after the Jerusalem Council and the Jerusalem church decided in his favor, wouldn't it be easy in Galatians just to say, look, people, don't yield to the pressure of these hyper-conservative Jewish troublemakers here. Look what the church decided in the Jerusalem Council here. Also, Galatians 2, 11 through 15 has Peter kind of caving to the pressure of these troublemakers in Antioch. And Paul shares that, he confronted Peter straight to the face here, that he was not walking in accordance with the gospel here. Now, the question is, could Peter have failed so miserably right after the decision of the Jerusalem Council? Also in Acts chapter 11 and Acts chapter 15, Peter defends a law-free gospel to the Gentiles. Could Peter have denied his own testimony so quickly if we take the Northern Galatians theory? Could he have defied the decision of the Jerusalem church, his home church, so quickly after the Jerusalem Council? That creates quite a few problems here. Now, let's look at the Southern Galatian theory. Galatia here does not refer to the ethnic group of the Gauls or the Celts. It refers to the Roman provincial designation for South Central Asia Minor, corresponds to South Central Turkey. And we know that the churches of Galatia, mentioned in 1:2, Paul established quite a few churches in South Central Asia Minor. See Acts 13 and all through Acts chapter 14 here. So this would mean, if you take the Southern Galatian theory, this would mean that Galatians would have been written right after his first missionary journey and right before the famed Jerusalem Council of Acts chapter 15. If we take it that way, that the council hasn't taken place yet, Peter's failure in Antioch of Syria becomes more comprehensible. Also, Galatians would then be Paul's very earliest letter that he ever wrote at a very early stage of Christianity. That somewhat explains why some church members like Peter, even Barnabas and others, were confused about what's the basis for accepting uncircumcised Gentiles in the church. Well, the church has never met and made a decision on this yet. So if you take the Southern Galatian theory, Paul wrote Galatians near the end of his first missionary journey in about AD 48 or 49, before the famed Jerusalem Council of Acts chapter 15. Let's go on to the question of why. What's the occasion or purpose of this letter? I think we've indicated that already. Troublemakers, agitators, Judaizers, Galatians 1:7, has slipped into the churches of Galatia to spy out the freedom of Gentile believers. And Paul has come against that, hammer and tongs, so to speak. These heretics appear to be like the Pharisaic believers that we see in Acts chapter 11 and Acts chapter 15 here. Again, they insisted that the Gentile believers be circumcised, convert to Judaism, follow the Levitical law in order to be saved here. And so this false doctrine obviously completely undermines sola fides, salvation by faith alone, and sola gratia, salvation by grace alone here. This heresy is really attacking the essence of the gospel, and Paul comes against it very, very strongly in Galatians there. So there's our background, the who, what, when, where, and why of Galatians. Thank you for staying tuned for devotions here. You might ask, what kind of devotion can I make on such technical information as the background information here? But let me just say something very quickly. The Judeo-Christian religion is not a religion of cleverly devised fables, so to speak. God entered our space. God came in space and time. There is a historical dimension to Judaism and Christianity. In the Bible, it names names, Jeremiah and Isaiah and Paul and James and John. It names names, and it names geographic locations here: Babylon, Assyria, Judea, Samaria, Galilee. So we have, the revelation is anchored in space and time. There is, if you will, an incarnational dimension to our faith here, that God entered our world, and it's real, and he addressed real people and with names and real geographic locations at specific times, so to speak. So, just as we close here, I think it can build our confidence, if you will, in our faith, that Jesus became incarnate because he wanted to be with us, and so that we might commune with him here. And let me just say in the end here, this incarnational, geographic, historical dynamic of Christianity means that God knows your name, and God knows where you live, and God knows your place in history as well. And so, yeah, just know that his eye is on you. His eye is on me. Jesus says he knows the very hairs on our head here. And so I think this builds a sense of trust and confidence that God is in control, and we can rest in that wonderful truth. Until next time, God bless. I can say that I certainly enjoyed sharing the wonderful truths of this great epistle with you, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you did, please subscribe to my channel by clicking on my profile picture here. Don't forget to hit the notification bell below, and that will notify you every time I get up a new video here. And you can also click on the like button below the screen here, and I would greatly appreciate it. I enjoyed sharing with you and look forward to sharing more from God's Word in the future. God bless.